hopefully I can answer some questions for you. What you got today is the yellow folder is specific for your child. What's in there is your GT matrix. If your child's already qualified, they have a GT matrix. That way you can have a copy of it. It's in the computer system, but some schools are still going to ask for it. So that way you want to make sure you have it readily available to you. If your child doesn't already have the GT qualification, or then we're going to be testing again, and that window is November, December. As it gets closer, I'll be letting you know the dates that we're testing. If your child's already qualified, they don't test. So they'll be in a room. We're not going to retest them. There's no need for that. So they'll be in a room doing other activities. The students who need testing will be getting their testing done. And then those results will be populated, and it goes right into this system. I don't get it, so you won't get letters from me saying you're qualified or not qualified. It goes right into the magnet system, and you get that information on the same day, the March 23rd day, when they tell you where you're accepted and all of that. The other thing that I printed out for each person is the matrix qualifying calculation data detail. And what that does is looks at their report card, their final report card from 4th grade is what you see here, and then their STAR testing. If you're new to the district or new to the state of Texas, yours is a little trickier, so I'll work with you to help you figure that out. That matrix score that's right here on the top left-hand corner is what is going to help you determine what schools you even qualify for. I had an updated paper here. It says updated really big across the bottom. I got this at 2:30 today. So the one that is in the staple packet is not accurate anymore. So that had already been run. So this one that does not say updated, don't look at that one. You want the updated one, okay? On the back of that, I left it in there because it has a map, and sometimes that's helpful to know what's logistically possible for your family. So this has a map of where the schools are located. So you want to make sure you're looking at the updated one. You can see the numbers that are needed to qualify for the schools that you may already be interested in, and then the ones that have auditions that you need to will set up an audition for, and the ones that are required to do, you have to be Vanguard in order to be placed in the lottery. And so we'll talk through the application process. I'm going to show you what that looks like. I'm in the same boat as y'all. When I went through this process with a kindergartner, there was no online system. So this is probably your first time going through this if this is your oldest child. So we'll walk through that. You can apply to up to 5 schools. If your child's not already qualified GT, it's probably not the best idea to put all 5 as Vanguard, because then you've just X'd out all of your choices. I'm not saying not to, because it's very well likely that they could qualify, but you don't want to put all of your eggs in that basket and then be stuck without any choices, okay? So that's just, in my opinion, something to consider. Let's see. And then this front page is just how to apply. There are school choice Saturdays. So 4 Saturdays in the next 3 months will be out at various high schools. This Saturday is Sterling High School, which is like on the southeast side of town, if that's convenient for you. It's from 9 to 12, and there's one or 2 per month and through December. And all the schools are there. We're broken off by our level. So secondary, middle schools are going to be together, high schools are going to be together. That way you can go and meet some of the magnet coordinators and see some of their programs. I also left over here for you to pick up another one-pager that looks like this. I have invited, no, that doesn't look like this. It looks like this. I've invited all the middle schools, so every middle school in HSD has been invited. They get invited to every elementary school, and they're all evening events. So you can imagine that they don't, not all of them show up to everything that we invite them to. I have found by having lots of people here, it helps. So I've invited Red Elementary School to join us and Coulter Elementary School. That way the middle schools know, guess what, there's 3 schools that we can recruit to at this one event. And so saying that y'all know our parking situation, it is come and go. So you don't have to all be here at the same time. It's during that window. So y'all plan ahead. I am working to try and have someone at the back door, someone in the teacher parking lot, and someone at the front door. So that's our ultimate goal, so that we can get you here. I'd rather you here, and it's for kids to let them come around and collect all the pencils and all of the folders and things like that. So that is coming up if you want to mark it on your calendar. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through the online site. This is the developmental site. So this is, I'm just going to be creating like a fake application. It goes live tonight at 12 o'clock midnight. Secret? I would wait a few days. I'm Team HISD, but I'm also a realist. And I know that things sometimes take a little while to work itself out. So I don't think that anyone needs to wake up tonight at 12:01 and get on and put their application on, because there are people that are going to be doing that. And it's not a first come, first served situation. As long as you're in there before the December 7th deadline, it all counts the same. So give it some time to work itself out, and then get on there and get your business done. So the site is going to be the same as last year. It's Smart Choice application, but the easiest way to get to it is just go to the HISD website and then hit the Apply Now button. It'll take you over to it. If you've already done this process and have an account, then you're going to need to do this. If you have never created an account, you'll need to do this. If you have and can't remember, you can give me a call and I can see if I can find it by your email address and help you get started that way if you have multiple email addresses. So when you log in, you're going to see to add a new student, or this down here, has your student ever been registered in HISD? Because this is the development side, I'm going to be doing it like my child doesn't have an ID number, but all of y'all's children do have an ID number. The best place to find that is old report cards. If you can't remember it, you don't have anything at home, any testing or anything if you have STAR testing from last year, it's the, yeah.
Is it on this thing?
On grade
Yes.
fees.
It's on the matrix thing, yes. Yeah. I'll tell you, because sometimes there's extra numbers. Yep, student ID, it's right under your child's name. So great job, I remember. Okay, so I'm going to just put that the child I'm applying for has never been in HISD, but when you go to this account, you're going to want to use that number because it's going to pre-populate all your information. One thing that I think pops up year after year that I have parents calling on is if you've moved and your number that your address that we have is different than an address that you applied with, it gets very confusing. We'll need to go in on our end and kind of fix it up. So if that's something that you already know may be an issue, that's something that either me or the magnet clerk, James Avalis, can help you out with, okay? And so it's just going to have them listed here. If you have schools that you're already interested in, that first application is going to take possibly the longest. I'm going to do a performing arts school so you can see what the audition process looks like. You need to agree. So, again, this should all pre-populate if you use that student ID. And And your address should pre-populate too. So if you see it, like I'm using the school address because I don't need all of y'all at my house this weekend. But it should pre-populate, and if it doesn't, then it's either a newer development, which is the case in some of these in some of our streets where it's new properties. But I can help you fix that too if you see it's not showing up. Sorry, guys. Current school. And even if you don't think you're going to use bus transportation, I think we've all heard about the transportation woes, and now that you may be applying to schools that are a little farther away, you don't know where you're going to be next year. Put yes. Go ahead and put it in there. It's much easier to put yes and not need it than it is to come back and have to request it later. If this request is put in, hypothetically, you should be able to get bus transportation on the first day of school. If you go to the middle school on the first day of school and say, oh my gosh, I need transportation now, I still have some kids who have told me on the first day of school, I still haven't gotten them on a bus. So we're looking at 4 or 5 weeks. So just say yes now. I know there are some HISD employees in here. You can put yeah, you're going to want to. The only help it gives you is if you live out of HISD zone, it counts you as an in-district employee or application. This says if you don't get accepted to any of your choices, then you want to be contacted by schools that have room. And I say yes, for sure. You want to have as many opportunities as possible. Attending. If you already have a sibling at the school you're applying to, this is very important. You want to put that you have a sibling you're attending. That gives you a priority. If you don't, they verify it. So don't say yes, they're going to verify it. And if you have a sibling that's also applying, if you have twins, that's going to pop up. If you have a sibling that's also applying, if you have twinsies, then it will give you the option to keep them together or put them separate. And that's up to you. I know that's only maybe one family in here. We can talk about the benefits either way, one-on-one. Okay, this is an income. You don't have to answer any of this information. If you fall into one of these categories, you can mark it here. It does not give you any preference in the lottery. It does go into GT qualification. It will add obstacle points on your GT application if your child has not even qualified. Okay, so this is where you're going to get into the audition sections, okay? So I have a child who is in the orchestra and is going to want to audition for that. You get a second choice at Meyerland's. This is Meyerland's application, so everyone's going to be a little different. But so I put one of her choices, I'm going to pick another choice, and then continue. So those are the 2 areas that you can apply to get into through the magnet. You have to schedule the audition, so get your calendar ready because it's going to lead you right to that. So it shows you the dates in red are the dates that you that are options. So there's a couple dates in December, January, and then you choose the time slot. If you're applying to 2, I put violin and dance, Obviously don't want to put those at the same time. And I want to schedule enough time so I'm not stressing myself or my child out either. Because while it's on the same campus, one may add a little longer. So you want to give yourself plenty of time so that you're not creating kind of a stressful situation. And if your child is definitely not a morning person, maybe don't pick 8 o'clock. And then you'll go to the next one. So that was my request for the first one. Like I said, you don't want to do one right back to back. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of time. And then make sure you write those down. They are going to send you reminders, but go ahead and block that day off because it's very hard to reschedule. You can think about all of the elementary students that are applying to fewer middle schools. It's not super easy to be like, oh my gosh, I forgot we're going out of town. Pick your day and stick with it. Okay, it asks you to upload your final report card from the previous year. Y'all are all already here and you're all already in HISD. You don't need to upload anything. Everything is already in the computer system. They have that information. They have access to the matrices that I just handed out. So they have all the information they need. If you move to Texas or new to Lovett or new to HISD, you may need to upload some stuff. I know that again is a smaller population of people, so I can help you with what needs to be uploaded. Sometimes you'll have middle schools start calling, well, we don't see this or we don't see this. They have all the information. As soon as you get accepted there, they're going to request your child's permanent folder and we send it over to them. So they're going to get all the information they need, but it's already in our shared computer system. If you don't put your initials here, it's not submitted. So if you skip this step, it's in this limbo. It doesn't say submitted. And so at Lovett, we call families that don't do that. But we only have 1,200 applications. Middle schools have sometimes 10,000 applications, okay? So make sure that you've done all the steps. December 7th is the last day to submit applications. And let's see, this is just confirming all the information I put in. And then because it's the first one and I didn't put my ID number in, that one took the longest because I had to put in all my address. If I just click fill out another application, all that information is going to roll over. I'm just picking the school. I want to continue with myself, my application, and then I can pick the next school to apply to. Okay? So that kind of covered how to apply to schools that are have auditions. If you're applying to Vanguard schools, you don't need to upload your GT matrix. It's already in the computer system, so they'll see that you're qualified. If you're not yet qualified, but you qualify when we do the testing here in a little while, in November, December, then that information will go directly into the system too. So you may see something in the meantime that says like qualified, awaiting, or pending qualification. That means they're waiting on some scores to come in. I know in this area too, a lot of y'all are boundary option to pin up. So there's 3 middle schools. There's Meyerland, Pershing, and Cape Bell that are boundary option to Pin Oak Middle School. And so this is how you apply. You get to apply 2 ways if that's your boundary option. No one's zoned to Pin Oak. They don't have a zone, so no one can go and register just like they're zoned to us. They could live across the street. They're not zoned because no one's zoned there. It's only boundary option. So that was created to be an overflow school for Meyerland, Pershing, Cape Bell that had reached high capacity. And so,
all right, everyone, it is 6:35, so we should be preparing to wrap up our first session. And remember, in transition, we'll have our fine arts groups performing throughout the building. Thank you.
So when you put in your address, my address is zoned to Meyerland. I'm boundary option to Pin Oak. As soon as I enter my address, it's going to put me in the boundary option. I automatically go in there. There's not a separate one to fill out. So you're filling out the magnet application for Pin Oak because you wanted the opportunity to get in as a magnet student. As you do that, it's going to recognize your address as a boundary option, and you go into another lottery, which is the boundary option. And each one of those schools has their own lottery system, and so they're all separate. So you may be number 3 for Meyerland's boundary option to Pin Oak. You may be number 20 to Pin Oaks from Pershing. And you may get in because they had more space in that boundary option feeder pattern, okay? So they're all run separately. And you could, so same thing too, you're applying to 5 schools. I think it's silly not to apply to 5 schools. Find 5 programs. There's some really, really great programs. They aren't the ones that we talk about all the time or that you've heard because they're right down the street. For instance, we're taking the girls, I think permission slips are going home tomorrow. We're taking all of the girls to the Young Women's Preparatory Academy. It's a great program. It's something for them worth seeing, right? Think outside the box. And so apply to 5. The way it works is if you get into number 3, 4 and 5 drop off as your options, but you stay on the wait list for number 2 and number 1. So in June, if a spot comes open in your number 2, then you have the choice. You get a few days to decide, you know what, I'm happy with number 3, and that's cool, you're going to stay there. You still remain on for number 1, but then you drop off. If you're like, you know what, I really want that number 2, you drop off number 3 as your option, but you remain on number 1. And you stay on your number 1 wait list until usually 2 weeks before the first day of school. Which is stressful. Also, one other thing, I'm the one that called. I'm like, congratulations.
All right, everyone, at this time you should have everyone transitioning to session 2, and remember to just stop through the hallways as you're moving and enjoy our fine arts students as they perform. Thank you.
And then one other thing, there's one other school that's out there, Tanglewood.